We are live, ladies and gentlemen. WeatherBrains episode 450, a nice number. September 8th, 2014. The pre-show starting late. You know it's bad when the pre-show starts late. No telling when the show is going to get started. I made the mistake of doing a 7 o'clock speech, and it was a garden club, and it was the neighborhood adjacent to mine. So, you know, it's kind of like friends of friends, and, you know, Monday night, typically I always turn down Monday night talks. You just don't do it. It's busy. We got things to do here, but being the kind neighbor I am, I went and talked to the garden club. So, and everybody wanted to ask questions, and I finally said, I have to go. It's WeatherBrains night. And I got the deer in the headlights look. You know, these were... Well, I better be careful. They might be watching this, but hopefully some of them will watch. And what I'm trying to say is they're traditional non-viewers of WeatherBrains, I think. But, you know, they're gardeners. I mean, come on. You got to like weather. You got to watch WeatherBrains. So let me see here. I'm polling the crowd. I'm looking to see. I've not even lined the guests up yet, and this is not good. Kevin, talk, man. Say something funny. Give us a boring personal story. Oh, Kevin. You have no sound.
You mean Kevin's lost his voice?
Aubrey, give us a boring personal story. You've got one.
I weeded the garden all day yesterday.
Is it weedless?
Well, the backyard is. We're working on it. The husband is injured, so guess who weeded?
Ah.
You need a new agent.
I know, right? I need to trade him in for a new model.
So, let's see here. I'm trying to find our guests. There's one. No, you shouldn't have to do that. I mean, that just should not be part of your contract. So you're back at work, huh?
Back at work. I'm on the gauntlet all week.
Wow. So let's see here.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Loud and clear.
Oh, finally. Okay. I think that might
matter with you?
Me. Well, I was ready 20 minutes ago, and
Oh, it starts.
yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
someone wasn't there. He was off doing a speech to
To the garden club.
garden weasels. Is that what you said?
Garden weasels, exactly. All right. So Michael is let's see, Saenz. Is that correct? How do you pronounce his last name? Do we know?
I think it's Signs.
Sanz.
Michael Signs.
So I'm in the process of adding him to the WeatherBrains. I have 94 people in the WeatherBrains guests circle.
Wow.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot of people.
A lot of people with no sense, right?
Yeah, they have no sense and obviously no life. Hopefully, we started them on the road to recovery.
And now Aubrey's mad at me because we didn't make the T-shirts in another color.
What? Is there controversy?
She sent me an ugly note, said I'm mad at you for not making hot pink T-shirts.
He is full of lies. He is lying.
Lie, pants on fire.
Well, she's wearing the pink. She wanted the pink, right?
I did not even give a color suggestion. I just asked if there would be a future color option.
Yeah, I would love to do that and make others. We just have to see. We're up to almost 40.
40, yeah.
Yeah.
39. It keeps now. It's all like advertised on every page I click on.
I know. I'm so tired. It's like, yes, Facebook. I
know.
see that. I made it. I get it.
I think I was on Twister data tonight, and it was advertised there.
What?
Yeah, it's because they're all tracking you. That's all the little cookies that are left
Oh.
on your deal there.
They know.
I know. It's
Cookies
frustrating.
everywhere.
Boy,
Brian,
we
I
have a
see
lot
your
of-
note. You're saying in the content subdirectory you can't. That means
Apparently not.
You can't get in from the theme. You have to get in through the.
Yeah, you have to FTP. If you want to send it to me, and
Oh.
I can FTP
What?
it there.
What is the appropriate size? Because the one that's in there now got stretched out somehow.
Well, I can tell you the size of the one that's in there.
I know, but that's somehow has gotten. So that's what I couldn't even figure out the size in that guy's theme, because it doesn't tell it anywhere.
Well, hold on a second.
I mean, I can
hey,
try.
John, can you hear us?
I can, yes. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah,
John?
man.
Great.
Nice, good-looking video. Wow, that's nice.
Thank you.
Nice audio. I mean, this is, you're well illuminated. A lot of our guests sit in the dark. I mean, you got some light on you. This is good.
Well, you said well lit, so I wanted to be sure I could be seen.
There you go. That's good.
Well lit, not to be confused with lit up, which is something totally different.
Yeah, exactly.
Different show.
Uh-huh. So we're missing John. Looks like he's joining us now. We got to get John a new camera. You know, we're going to chip in. It says Cyberlink UCam. Please start your UCam.
UCam.
That's what it's. I mean, look at.
iCam, UCam, we all something for UCam.
John, the late '90s called and they want their camera back.
Yeah. Wow. Again, you know, John. For those that don't know, Dr. Scala is our 300+ IQ guy here, and John often struggles with his camera. Now he's there. We're seeing him. We are live. We just went live. Master Control came by. We are live. About to go on television. 6 minutes late. Now I have invited Michael. And I don't see him, and the problem is Michael does not have a picture on his Google Plus profile. I'll just invite every Michael Sands, you think?
Signs.
Signs?
Yeah.
Let's try another one. I'm going to try them all. I'm just going to invite everybody close to that, and let's see if we can find him. But this is the pre-show. This is where we're so busy, and again, it's my fault. I'm raising my hand, like the basketball player that commits the foul. I walked in my room at 10 minutes before showtime. Traditionally, I'm here 40 minutes before showtime, but did something I will not do again, which is a 7 o'clock speech on a Monday night. So we are totally discombobulated here, but I think I've got my act together with the pre-recorded segments. Now we're just missing Michael, and once we find him, we have Dr. John, we have Rick, we have Nate, we have Brian. Brian, how's your audio, man? Talk to me.
I don't know. How is it?
It's
Is it
clean
okay?
as a whistle. Yeah.
Okay.
But what happens, like toward the end of the show, you go the sideline. It goes.
It gets tired.
It gets tired.
Gets tired, like me.
You guys in those big PR40s, man. I'm jealous.
I love the PR40.
I know.
I like mine too.
Maybe
Now, Aubrey,
maybe we use the funds from the T-shirts and buy all of us non-PR40 people a PR40. Although
I
I've got
need to
a,
have the same thing.
although I've got an MXL 900, and I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty good.
We
From you're sounding clean.
the funds that we'll make on the T-shirt, we can afford one rubber band from the shock mount of the PR.
Yeah, I have to give credit. The guy at my office named Jimmy Benedict, who's a bit of a weather nut. He listens from time to time. He's also a voiceover artist, and had some quote-unquote old gear. And so I have a nice tube preamp that helps to clean up the sound a little bit, got a nice mic. You know, I got a limiter and a compressor and a multi-mix thing to sort of clean up and give me some control over stuff. But the guts of it right here is pretty good. So thanks, Jimmy. Just hooked me up, just gave me a grocery bag. It's like, here is some stuff I don't use anymore. Go use it.
When you say tubes, you're using the brand name, or you're just saying it's got a tube in it?
It is an ART tube preamp. It actually has a vacuum tube in it that it runs the signal through to clean up to give the sound a little bit of warmth.
I tried one of those years ago and hated it.
Ooh.
I sent it back, as a matter of fact.
Well, I mean, I'll give you guys. I mean, it's not easy for me to swap cables, but everybody says this sounds okay. So
Yeah.
No, you're clean as a whistle. You're good. Okay. Well, I've tried every Michael in the book.
Every Michael in Google Plus?
Well, every Michael's. What was it? How do you say his name again, Rick?
Signs, like street signs.
Like signs. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just keep going. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them in here, and he doesn't have the problem is he doesn't have a picture. So, I mean, there's a bunch of them in here, which is, you'd think there wouldn't be. Let's try this one. There's at least 5 that don't have pictures, Michael signs. And I think Bill said he's been tested.
You better qualify that.
Yeah.
Show title.
No title, yeah.
I think Bill said he's been tested.
Now we've already got Tony Rice hooked us up with a show title for this week.
Yeah, we got
We
some of
haven't
these
done the show
titles this
yet.
week.
How do you title the show? We haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
He just knows.
Because he knows what we're going to say.
All right, well, let's just go. We'll start it here because we're so late. All right, let me get over
I
here.
just put a link in the chat that might help.
Oh, okay, cool.
Oh, there's something in the... Here, was it his Google Plus page?
Oh, this is not the guy. Oh, no wonder. This is not the guy that Bill...
Bill sent something too. Is this the same thing that Rick just put in?
Bill sent a different guy. Okay, this is good.
There, that's what I have from Bill.
Yeah, because now we got a picture of him here. Now we can make this happen.
Yeah.
Now we can make it happen. Stand by. I can look for that picture, if indeed it comes up. Yeah, I was thinking this other guy that I had, man, it was like...
So while we're waiting, I have some jokes for you.
boring personal stories and jokes. That's what it's all about in the pre-show. Go.
By all means, don't save them for the show.
Oxygen and potassium went on a date.
Brother.
It was okay.
But
Oh, hang on, I got it.
Why do they hang a bell around a cow's neck? I lived in Texas for 7 years and I never heard this one.
Don't know.
Because the horns don't work.
Oh, I know that one. Yep.
Why did the coach?
John is wondering, why is he here?
Why did the coach put the duck into the basketball game?
I didn't want to let you know.
Oh, I don't know.
To take foul shots.
Oh.
Oh.
Is this how you
Please
open up your
guess.
class?
So how's that guest coming along?
Yeah, boy, we are going right down the tubes here.
Another show title.
And I love this. I'm telling these jokes on live television. I love that. That's for all of you folks watching James Spann 24/7 in Birmingham, Alabama. I apologize in advance.
I mean, I'm watching. Your mug is right up there in this big monitor in front of me, telling these jokes on the other channel. I'm thinking, boy. All right, well, let's get this thing started, and I found him, and I will get him on here. But let's go ahead and get the show going here. So here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. WeatherBrains! The weekly gathering of the Weather Weenies, better known as WeatherBrains, episode number 450 for September 8th, 2014. And we are into meteorological fall. Just saying that sounds a little better. Well, I got a cool picture today on Twitter from somebody in Calgary, Alberta, with snow on the ground.
Whoa.
Ooh, boy, it looks good up there. And I was looking at Great Falls and Bismarck, and they were like at 90 today. And just across the border, they were in the 30s. It was going to be a slap in the face up there. But it's a great time of the year. Brian Peters is the internationally beloved meteorologist. I like talking to Brian up front because we know his audio is going to be good at the top of the show.
We hope so, anyway.
So, yeah, we don't know what, Brian has great equipment, and just the last few shows, at the end, he starts buzzing, this kind of strange noise, but you're clean as a whistle.
The Cylons are taking over.
Yes.
So, yes, I do love the fact that the seasons are changing, James. That's wonderful.
So what advice do you have for Rick? We have an active warning coordination meteorologist and a retired warning coordinating meteorologist. What advice do you give Rick?
Pace yourself.
Oh, you should have told me that earlier.
Yeah. I figured you've already encountered that problem, right?
Yeah, it didn't take long to figure that part out, but that's good advice.
Yes.
I would say that's one of the most high-profile, busiest jobs at any local office. Don't you guys agree? I mean, you guys never stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's always a demand. There's always something more. There's even more than what you can meet, more demands than you can meet.
And new demands every day you didn't even know were demands last week.
But it's still a fascinating job and one of the best in the Weather Service, in my personal opinion.
And
then you guys, when there's active weather, you guys are involved in the storm surveys, aren't you?
Usually. I was anyway.
Yep.
I think it may vary from site to site, but I think typically yes.
Would you guys say that most WCMs aspire to a MIC position, or most do not?
I don't know. I know one that doesn't.
Do you know him very well?
I know him pretty well.
Yeah.
And I know he's seen enough of the MIC job to know that he has the best job in the Weather Service.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think there's a good number out there. I mean, there were some MIC slots that were just filled recently, and WCM's got quite a few of those. The WCM in Nashville, the WCM in Tallahassee, WCM in Mobile, all moved up into MIC positions. So that is the next logical step if you want to go higher, unless you go to a headquarters job.
And let's just
Does that come after? I'm sorry. Go ahead, James.
Let's go back to the basics for those that don't know, gentlemen. I'll let both of you answer if you want to. What exactly is, for those that don't know, for those that are not plugged into the Weather Service culture, what is a warning coordination meteorologist, and what are the basic duties at a Weather Service office?
Go ahead, Rick.
Warning coordination meteorologist, that's not really a good name. That's a name we got back in the mid-'90s, and we could really change it. We're more of a service coordination meteorologist. We are kind of the external affairs, sales and marketing, public affairs, external relations. We're kind of the outside person in the National Weather Service office, helping to develop and maintain and nurture relationships with the media, with the emergency management, public safety, and anybody else outside the office that uses National Weather Service information. So that's everybody from kindergarten teachers to storm spotters to broadcast meteorologists and everyone in between. So a lot of our time is dealing with things outside the office, and you know, lots of meetings, lots of talks, lots of speaking engagements, getting to go talk to garden clubs and things like that. Not on a Monday night.
Yeah, but please don't do it on Monday nights. For those listening to the podcast here, we started a smidgen late due to a Monday night little speaking deal, which I should not have done. But anyway, we have our two WCMs. We have Kevin Selly, the melodious tones coming from Arlington, Texas tonight.
Good evening. I always felt sorry for the WCM position because it seems like, number one, you're in a government position, right, where you're supposed to serve and provide services to the public, so you almost can't say no to anything, and you have to do all of these things, which is probably how you got stuck on this program. But the regular public
say no to things.
Yeah, I know, but it just seems like that's a 24-hour deal then.
It kind of is. I'm learning to say no more. I used to say no. I used to never say no, but you know, there are limits. There's only one of me. We got a great team of people that help and support on the team, but it's a lot of demand.
Well, it's quiet here in Texas, James. We're just waiting on that shot of cooler air as we get into the latter part of the week, and I can't wait for one. You know, come on, bring it on, fall. Oh, we have our T-shirt thing. Do you have the audio that I sent you, James?
Yes. Are you ready to play it?
Well, we can play now. I got to qualify. This is a promo for the T-shirts, and I keep missing up the date. We've got another week. It's another 7 days, I think, that you can order the T-shirts. So if you're listening to this program this week, you can order them. I'm not sure about this promo. I think we're going to set a benchmark for the audio stuff that I make. It's either going to be a high mark or a really low bottom of the barrel mark. And so I don't know, but here's the promo for the T-shirts.
New from Kevco. As seen on TV. For a limited time only. New and improved. Be the envy of the neighborhood.
Jump to the shirt, jump to the shirt. You're a weather geek, so move your feet. Teespring.com/weatherbrains. Jump to the shirt, jump to the shirt. Only $20, so move your butt. There's a hoodie too, so it's all on you. Jump to the shirt, jump to the shirt.
Word to the weather. All right, so I'll let y'all decide if that's a high watermark or low, and we'll just.
Where is the video version?
Yeah,
we need to see that.
That's what I want to know.
Aubrey, Aubrey, I'm just you're next on the list here. I don't know what to say. What do you say about that? Wow.
I thought it was hilarious. I could just envision a video being put together in my head, but no, I thought that was hilarious.
Well, you have permission to use the tracks then, Aubrey, if you want to dance to it one time,
Okay.
and get that set up for the next one.
Submit a video.
Yeah, it's again, it's Teespring. That's TEE spring.com/weatherbrains. And as of this recording, we've got about a week left. It's a T-shirt for $20, and there's a hoodie for $30. Unfortunately, they're both in black, and Aubrey's mad at me that we've not made additional colors available. Now she's going to be even more mad at me for saying that. But if we do another one, we'll get a different color option. But the way this Teespring thing works is that you can just do, as far as I can see, you can only do one color at a time. So, guys.
All right. Well, Aubrey, goodness, you are at your post. You're back on duty tonight, I see.
Yes, and it's starting to get a little active in here. So we're getting ready to do a show, and you know, I weeded in the garden yesterday, and we're wedged with cooler air today. Our high was 67 degrees today in Virginia. So the lovely cool wedge in between the mountains. The wedge can be good sometimes.
Cold air damming. So who are these goobers behind you back there?
Let's see. We got Channing. Channing's anchoring. We got David on sports, and I think we have Emily. We have Emily, our web producer, and she's also a reporter. So.
Wow. Well, they look like two very attractive men back there. That's all I can say. They look like TV guys. They got some very nice hair. They've got it all boofed up. You know, I mean, they're looking good. So what you got what 10 o'clock news? Is that what comes on here?
10 and 11.
Ooh, this is exciting. So you're like going to be on our show in your show all at the same time. This is
I know. I'll be like in
two
different places.
This is great. No, I would not even want to think about. Yeah, Brian, could you imagine if we were live in our studio in here doing this show and while we're trying to do the news? Oh, golly, they would shoot us.
I can
Dr.
listen
John,
to what's going on.
Yeah, all right. Well, Dr. John Scala brings some common sense to the round table. Dr. John, how are you?
I'm good, James. Maybe some level of professionalism that this organization could improve upon.
But after Kevin's commercial, there's nowhere to go but up, right?
That's true. Hey, I gotta say a shout out here to John. John and I worked at NASA. What, John, 20 years ago?
Long time ago. It was in the early 90s.
You haven't changed a lick. Welcome to the program.
You either. Thanks.
So it's like every time we bring on a guest, John has worked with him. I mean, it's like John has worked with everybody in the weather enterprise. This is great.
Makes you want to treat me with more respect, doesn't it?
Exactly. I mean, you're a very important man. Nate Johnson is very important. Nate Johnson is very important because I think he had the best dance moves during the commercial. Nate, you were working that thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure that dancing is what I'd call that. Not in the traditional sense, anyway.
Now, it looked like you were having some type of epileptic fit or something. I'm not sure what was going on.
I was grooving to the music.
Okay.
Because when I've got my tasty beverage and my tasty snack. I've been up since the crack of dawn. I had to ferry both of the kids into the sitter this morning because my wife had an early meeting. So I'm running on fumes and it feels great.
Okay, Nate obviously is off his meds tonight. That'll make it a more exciting show. So we're working on getting a guest panelist in here, Michael Sines from, he's in Oklahoma City, right, Rick, in your market?
Unmute. Yes, that is correct.
Okay, and again,
I wish I could help him find you. I wish I could help you find it.
It's just kind of strange sometimes when we use Google Plus, as you know, to produce this show with Google Hangouts, and sometimes for those that have newer accounts and they don't have a lot of followers that are just kind of getting into it, it's kind of hard to find them. But we will put the search party out. So who's doing the interview tonight? So Bill is not here. Bill Murray is out. He's totally going AWOL. I mean, I don't know. Did we make him mad or something or what? I mean, he just left. I'm trying to think who angered him. So who's doing the interview tonight? Do we have a volunteer?
I nominate Kevin Sully since he's the new guy.
I do too. He's the noob. And he's talking. We can't hear a word he's saying. Hello.
I'm afraid to talk after that commercial. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can, but it's going to be something has come up. I'm going to have to go away for a minute or two, but I can come back.
What?
I know. I'm just handling personal business, but I'll be back.
On WeatherBrains time?
Ouch. No paycheck for you, Kevin Sullis.
Oh, darn.
You know, there's some kind of a bathroom joke in here somewhere, but I'm not going there. I'm just not. I don't want to drag this thing down any more than it's been down tonight.
Don't do it, man.
I'll be back.
So, Nate, that means it's going to fall on you, man. Have you got the show notes here?
No, I don't.
Oh, boy.
Stand by for news. My laptop is... It's old. It's 6 years.
Let's let Dr. John bring in Dr. John.
Since they know each other.
They know each other, so go, Dr. John. You're it.
Hey, I was just waiting for you guys to get caught up here. Gee whiz. Well, Dr. Montebianco and I actually worked at NASA in the early 90s, and I was always struck by his intuitive nature, his ability to come up with some interesting and maybe off-the-wall angles at attacking science. So John, let's go back to the 90s when you and I met at NASA and talk a little bit about how you got there and some of the early work that you were involved in.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I came to NASA Goddard in '89 actually to work with now the director of the National Weather Service, Lou Uccellini, and he was doing some work on explosive East Coast cyclogenesis and some data assimilation. So I came there to work with him, and I wasn't there but 3 months, and he called me into his office, and he said, I have good news and bad news. He said, the good news is we're going to continue publishing papers, but the bad news is that I'm going to NCEP, at that time the National Meteorological Center. So I said, Louis, why didn't you tell me this when I interviewed with you? And he said, well, I thought it might affect you taking the job here. So needless to say, I stayed there at NASA and published a few more papers with Louis, and also with Steve Koch, who is now the director of the National Severe Storms Lab.
Right.
And there's my connection, because I had Steve Koch for forecasting and radar meteorology when he was in his academic life at NC State.
NC State,
right. That's right.
Small
John,
world.
You and I were in the same laboratory for atmospheres there at NASA Goddard, and I have to tell you a quick story. When I interviewed with Joanne Simpson, I was still a doctoral student at Virginia, and I remember talking with her about wanting to come to NASA Goddard and work on thunderstorm research. And I had proposed some ideas, and she looked at my my letter and she said, "Nope, this isn't going to work. You're going to have to redo this." She was very blunt that way, but at the same point, she was incredibly supportive.
Yeah, she was.
Any recollection of working with her there?
Yeah, she was a brilliant scientist, and no doubt about it. And she had some quirks, as you know, working with her, right? And that was a terrific group there at Goddard. Before it started to break up a bit, and I really enjoyed my time there. And I left in '93, the year of the superstorm. And in fact, we pulled out of town just a few weeks after the superstorm.
Right, and you went to Florida at that point, right?
I did go to Florida, that's right, yeah. I went down to support the U.S. space program doing technology transition for all of the weather forecasting.
Yeah, and I think that's where your career has really taken some real interesting angles. So maybe you could talk a little bit more of what you did down in Florida.
Sure, I initially supported a group known as the Applied Meteorology Unit, and then later ran the group. We supported all of the NASA enterprise looking at technology that was ideally to help them improve weather forecasts. And the weather forecast for the space program was quite unique in that there were a lot of very difficult and challenging forecast problems that didn't really typically come into play with public forecasting. So things like launch commit criteria and distance to lightning and so forth. Those types of problems required some very special technology and some special forecasting methods. So we spent a lot of our time scouting the research environments, working in academia and government laboratories, looking for the latest and greatest technology to see if we could bring it to bear on improving the forecasting for the U.S. space program.
And when you stand like oh, there we go. We have our guest panelists.
Hello?
Hey, Michael, can you hear us?
I can. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Are you at work? Are you there in the weather office?
I am.
Okay. Well, welcome. You are the chief meteorologist at KTUZ in Oklahoma City. Do you know a guy named Rick Smith by any chance?
Sounds familiar. Rings a bell. I might have met him.
It's a very common name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
Well,
Good. How's it going,
thanks
Mike?
for joining us.
Good.
All right, go ahead, Dr. John. We'll let you take over here.
Okay, James. I want to continue to talk with Dr. John Montebianco here about the work that he's been doing down in Florida. And John, you've gone from supporting the space program down there to some other really interesting activities. Maybe you could expand on that.
Right. So about 10 years after I joined Applied Meteorology Unit, I moved into an area of advanced technology. And the genesis for the ideas really came from the original Twister movie. I think all of the weather nerds certainly have seen that movie. The idea back in the 90s was that they had an instrument pack called Dorothy, and it was filled with wireless sensors. And that started our interest in looking at those devices and thinking about whether or not we could actually design and eventually build them. And what really spurred us on was some additional technology development in micro and eventually nanotechnology that took off in about 2000. So it was about that time that we started floating the ideas around to actually make those devices. In the beginning, we were more interested in making them dust-sized than the balls, those little tiny ping pong balls that appeared in the Twister movie. Yeah. So we started to explore that a bit, and we actually got some money, quite a bit of money actually, from NASA to look at a feasibility study to go after understanding how the technology might work and what we might do with it.
So that feasibility study, did you encounter some pushback on that? Or how was that received?
Yeah, there was. Well, initially, the idea came out of some work from the government, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA.
Right. Yeah.
And they started a program in the late 90s known as Smart Dust. And the idea was that these little tiny devices, the specks of dust, would float around and do surveillance, mainly obviously for military applications. But there were a lot of people that were concerned with privacy and spying on the average person and so forth. But we took a look at that from the non-military perspective to understand whether we could shrink the electronics and all the other things necessary to get the devices to be that small. And the idea was once we did that, we would release hundreds of thousands or millions of them to take weather data. So we would change the paradigm for in situ instrumentation and observing.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, that nanotechnology, I think, is a long way from the kind of work you were doing at NASA Goddard. How did you move in that direction?
I think it was a bit of fortuitousness. We basically, I started thinking about the idea from Twister and doing a lot of reading in different areas outside of pure meteorology and weather, and then just came to the realization that it might be kind of cool to go after looking at some of this. And so we started talking with yet another NASA Goddard person, Dave Short, who worked a lot with, I think, with you.
Yeah.
And we started, as you guys do on this show, just brainstorming a bit, bouncing ideas around, and one thing led to another. And we contacted some of the folks that were originally involved in the military programs, and we started to get their input in the electrical engineering avenues and so forth, and one thing led to another, and we started putting together proposals.
Astounding piece of work. Well, where are you going with it right now? What's next on the horizon?
Well, it's been a long time. That was back in 2000. So, but all disruptive technology usually has a 10 or 15-year cycle. We, of course, ran into some funding issues with the government, as I think anyone knows that's been trying to get money in certainly in the mid-2000s. But and we've had a number of different programs funded by various government agencies. Some of them were classified, so we did step into that arena a bit. Yeah. The idea now, though, is we really want to build a prototype system, and the devices won't be dust size any longer. they look more like the pictures I sent you guys, which was basically we're looking to make something like a dandelion seed. So that's pretty small, but it's not dust size. It would certainly contain micro and nanotechnology components to make it one of the lightest and low-cost devices that you could release. The idea is still to put many, many hundreds or thousands of them into specific environments, but that you would collect more in situ data than has ever been possible in meteorology.
What about the data collection side of this? Has that proven to be a rather difficult nut to crack?
Actually, it has. We were initially looking at what's known as an ad hoc network, something that a lot of the electrical engineers and the sensor folks have been trying to set up for many years. This idea that one node would communicate with the next node, its nearest neighbor, and then it would relay the data back to some base station. As part of the NASA projects, we actually looked at what would happen if you scaled that to thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of nodes, and it turns out it wouldn't work. You'd get data bottlenecks. There'd be big data everywhere, and you wouldn't be able to access any of it. So we eventually settled on some different ideas to do the communication, and one thing we looked at was actually radar responsive RFID, radio frequency ID tags, the kind of technology that's used in tracking merchandise. And in fact, the military uses them to do friendly fire location on the battlefield. But it turns out that even with the radars, that presents some of its own unique challenges. So we've had to morph it yet again and think about just doing a standard radio frequency link with each one of the nodes back to some base station at a given distance.
John, how do you deal with these things that are obviously going into a hostile environment? They're obviously real tiny, but they must be some level of tough too, right?
Yeah, that's right. The idea is really to insulate the electronics and from any kinds of water vapor, liquid water, and so forth, dust. But the devices themselves won't last that long, so all we have to do is really protect them long enough to take the data. They have a non-zero terminal velocity, so they're falling pretty slow, but certainly not like dropsons that fall 10, 15 meters per second. These would be more like Lagrangian, semi-Lagrangian drifters. So they would drift with the wind, but they would still settle out of the air as they were coming down, depending on where you release them.
And what about people on the ground then? Is this something that they just wouldn't notice, or is it like it's obviously not as big as a weather balloon coming down, but...
Right. I mean, if you picked one up, they really do no harm. They have no more dangerous components in them than, say, radiosondes or dropsondes. They'd be very small, so even if one hits you on the head, you know wouldn't be all that dangerous. I think the bigger concern would be to general aviation, especially jet engines. We have never done any testing with jet engines, and so I imagine the FAA would have a few concerns. But unlike birds, and we know that there have been a number of issues with aviation and birds in the last few years for sure, unlike birds, these would be very, very lightweight. But that doesn't mean that there are certain types of aircraft, like military aircraft, are very sensitive to ingesting anything into the engines. So typically we would fly these in environments away from airports or flight paths, and they wouldn't drift that long, so we would have we would be better able to control where they go, rather than just deploying them, say, near airports or military bases and those types of things.
And forgive me if you answered this already, because I was away, but how are they deployed? Is from the ground up, or you're dropping them from something?
No, originally we had intended to use super pressure balloon technology and make the balloons like soap bubbles almost, so they would be neutrally buoyant. But it turned out that even the nanotechnology needed to do that was very, very difficult to get working. So now they would have no neutral buoyancy, and the primary way to deploy them would either be from weather balloons as a pod, some type of additional pod on a balloon, or from an aircraft. Primarily, I would think from an unmanned aircraft system.
And what is a super balloon? You went past me there.
Yeah, a super pressure balloon is one where it doesn't actually change volume as it ascends and descends. So it's unlike a weather balloon that expands. This would be a constant. It would be a constant volume. So it overinflates as it goes up, and then if it changes altitude rapidly, the pressure stays essentially the same inside.
So how many, if you're going to try and sample a thunderstorm, how many nanites, do you call them nanites, would you put in?
That would really depend. The system was initially designed to be very broadly scalable. So if you were trying, say, to observe a supercell thunderstorm, you might launch a few thousand. But you could do that just as easily launching a few million over, say, the state of Texas or Alabama. It really depends on the application and where you want them to go. It would be a little more difficult to control them now that they actually are not neutrally buoyant. But if you release them at high enough altitudes and you could estimate where their trajectories would go, you could say get them into a supercell or into a frontal boundary or just about anywhere you would want to put them.
And this will be my last one. How would you? And I completely lost my train of thought. Somebody's gonna have to go. I completely blanked out, and I apologize.
Senior moment. I love it.
What is the average airspeed velocity of an unladen nanite?
Well, they would generally move with the wind, so their terminal velocity would be on the order of about 50 centimeters a second. So very, 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 very slow descent compared to, say, a dropson, which, again, as I said, was about 10 or 15 meters per second when it's coming down. So these would drift, and of course, if they were in a thunderstorm or if they were in a hurricane, which is another place I think they would be quite useful, a lot of the updrafts might carry them well into the lower stratosphere, in which case it might take longer than a day for them to actually reach the surface.
It'd be really cool if one of these gets sucked up into collision coalescence into a raindrop and then gets sucked up into a hailstone or something and continues to transmit. That would be kind of cool.
Well, when we originally designed them to be very small, that was a possibility. Now that they'll be the size of a dandelion seed, they may eventually get coated with ice or something. Yeah. But I don't think they would serve necessarily as a nuclei for that precipitation kind of process.
That might require a new warning category, Rick. It would be some sort of nanite warning for hail, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm already thinking of that. Very interesting.
John.
Cool deal. Well, we're going to transition. We have our guest panelist our guest WeatherBrain on the show now, Michael Sines. This was a suggestion from listener Eric Church, and we love having suggestions, guest suggestions. So if you have them, certainly send them to us, email at weatherbrains.com. Michael Sines is the chief meteorologist for KTUZ-TV in Oklahoma City. That's kind of a big weather market, I'm told. Mike, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a little big, and then we also translate statewide, so that makes it even bigger.
Wow. Yeah. So you have your hands full on severe weather days. Do you ever get to go home from February until about May or June? Do you ever get to see the inside of your house?
This year I did.
This year. I hear you.
Yeah.
So what got you interested in weather?
I was coming home from seeing a show downtown, and I was with my parents. I was maybe about 10 at the time. As we were driving, saw lightning up ahead in the distance and whatnot, and my brother called and said, "Be careful, there's a really bad storm on the way." And my mom, "Nah, we'll be fine." We were in a Suburban at the time that had those televisions that you pulled down, and it was over the air. This is before we went all digital. And we got stuck in a hailstorm, a really bad hailstorm. Pulled over, at the time we were in the car, turned on the television, and I was there watching the meteorologist, talk about where the storm was, and if you were right over, 35 in Fredericksburg, you were going to get hit hard, and that's where we were, and I was just like, oh my God. And so I guess from that moment I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be the one to inform people, to let people know what's going to be happening.
So you're that guy now.
I am.
Tell me about your setup at Telemundo. What kind of gear do you have there? How do you handle severe weather setups?
Well, when I arrived here, I used a PowerPoint to deliver all of my broadcasts, and that was a struggle. I went from working at WOI, where we used WSI, and we used all sorts of different equipment and whatnot, and so I was used to radar and having satellite images and being able to do all this stuff. And I come here and I thought, okay, and so it was for about 2 to 3 months that I used PowerPoint to actually give my forecast. I was able to work with layers and putting some imagery together to at least tell them, but it was granted at that point we were in winter, so we were okay. There was no severe weather. Then 2-3 months later, they invested in Barron's, and so I'm using that now. I'm using their Omni system kind of on a day-to-day basis right now. So it works.
And how do you like it? I mean, compared to PowerPoint, just about anything would be an improvement, but how do you like the Omni system? How is it working for you?
It's good. I guess working from WSI, I mean WSI. WSI, because I had a Max at WAI. So I guess going from Max to Omni, it was different, but there are some similarities and differences. Overall, I like it.
Cool. So you are I'm told that by the guy who wrote up our show notes that you are Oklahoma's first Spanish-speaking broadcast television meteorologist. What does that? Do you feel like you have any extra responsibility, and especially considering, and we'll get, I think, in more detail about May 31st, but since we've had a number of deaths we had a tornado here in 2011, and some of the deaths were primarily Spanish-speaking folks that did not speak English as a first language. How does that make you feel? I mean, what do you feel like that puts any additional pressure on you when there is severe weather that these folks are counting on you to provide information in their native tongue?
I think a little bit, not so much the language, because Spanish to me is a second language. English is my first. And I've just gathered resources with the help of other meteorologists within the network of Telemundo who have kind of helped me in transitioning that information. I can definitely say I do feel just a tiny bit more pressure because of the fact that I'm not well equipped as some of the other stations here in the city, and so it's a matter of just finding that gap between that information that would be, put out on ABC, NBC, CBS.
What do you think the rest of the Weather Enterprise needs to do to serve the Spanish-speaking community? Do you think I would assume, and I'll assume that nobody here thinks we're doing enough, so I would assume that you're the same. What do you think we need to be doing better?
I think alerts. Alerts and providing the information in Spanish, providing it in that second language. Now, granted, I mean, that would be a lot for if an English station were to all of a sudden start doing broadcasts in Spanish. But maybe within crawls, like the crawls that they run across the television with the alerts, having them in dual languages, because I know it is supported by various weather vendors. That I think would be something that would be really important, because I'm not here 24/7, and God forbid there's a tornado at night, people need to have that information.
What's been the reaction to your being on the air in Oklahoma City? I mean, as we were sort of joking off the top, I mean, that is a rapidly competitive broadcast market when it comes to weather. It chews people up and spits them out. What's been the reaction to your presence, and do you feel like you're making an impact there?
Oh, definitely. Just from general viewers, they're excited that there's someone here that actually knows what they're talking about. Not to say that the other person didn't, but typically you'll see in Spanish stations someone just there giving, temperatures and then the 7-day. That's what they've done here for the past 5 years because they've never had a meteorologist before. And so I guess now that these people are like, okay, they can actually tell me, he can tell me what's coming my way, when to expect it, and just to be able to relay that information to them in a timely manner and to let them know what to expect, I think is a big difference.
Mike, I'm glad you're on the show tonight, and glad you're in Oklahoma City. I know we kind of worked together a little bit when you first got here, and I know you were scrambling to try to figure out data sources and ways to get information on the air. So I'm glad you got the Barron system up and running. Talk a little bit about what it was like, and I can kind of fill in some of the blanks. But I mean, before you got here, we had a reporter from Telemundo was a pretty frequent visitor in our office, because if there was an event coming up, a weather event coming up, they would come in and talk to us, because they really didn't have a dedicated weather department. I think they did a good job of doing what they could with what they had, but I mean, it's a pretty drastic change to have you there now. Can you talk about what it was like before you got there during a tornado event, for example, versus what it's like now?
Sure. Before I was here, and she's actually still here, she's one of our reporters, her name's Jessica, she would be the one to relay out that information in Spanish about the tornado watches, about the tornado warnings, kind of what to expect. They relied a lot on the National Weather Service for alerts, information. They would also use other sources just to kind of get the information across. And I think May 30th kind of opened up the eyes for the station, and that, hey, we need this dedicated person. When they were actually here transmitting their broadcasts of, hey, you know, there's a tornado, take cover, this, that, and the other, they actually lost power, complete power, and the station was out of power for, I want to say, 4 hours. The only portion of the studio here that is covered by the generator was the radio, and so they went downstairs into the radio and broadcast during that time. Again, over the air as to, okay, this is what y'all need to do, this is what you should do, but that had somewhat of a negative impact on the Hispanic community for those who weren't listening on the radio and who were watching on TV. So I think when that happened, people kind of opened their eyes and, okay, this is what we need to do, this is how we need to proceed. In my time of being here, they invested in the generator, so now the generator is all in master control as well as here in the studio. And then I also have, now we even have the capability with the mics and the systems that they've set up here. If we go into severe weather mode, what we broadcast audio-wise on television is also broadcasted on the radio, which I think is really, really good. And that's a Spanish radio station that they have here in Oklahoma City. And then I think the cool thing, too, is if, hypothetically speaking, there were to be a tornado and I was on air, all of a sudden I said, you know what, we need to go take cover. As I'm walking, I can still be relaying information, and there's about a second delay, but all of that will still be transmitted on television and the radio all at the same time.
That's great, and you know, we in Oklahoma City and other markets too, we know how important that is, because a lot of people lose power. It's, you know, not just the station losing power, but people lose power and they're going to their shelters or they're in their vehicles. So it's important to have that audio component of that too. Obviously, May 31st of last year played a big role, I think, in you being here and the emphasis that the station is putting on weather now. For those of you who aren't familiar, of course, we had the tornado, the El Reno tornado that got all the attention. We had 8 fatalities from the tornado, but we had 13 people that died from flash flooding. And 12 of those people died from taking cover under culverts and ditches and drainage areas and things like that. And a pretty large percentage of the fatalities from May 31st were members of the Hispanic community. And so that played a big role, and I know, you know, that played a large part in you being here, Michael. Since then, I know there's been a lot more outreach. There's been a lot more going out into the community and doing education. Talk a little bit about what you've been doing. I've got a nice brochure that you produced that I've been handing out at outreach events that I do. Talk a little bit about your outreach and your education that you're doing since you've been here.
Perfect. So one of the things that I wanted to do when I got here is, okay, how do I go about spreading the message? At the time, I didn't have the technology, and so I thought, all right, what else can I do? How else do people communicate? And so I thought, oh, well, we all read, right? Might as well put a brochure together. Me being from Texas, I've always seen hurricane guides, and I thought, why not put out a tornado guide, right? People will know how to take the basic pamphlet information with information that people will know, okay, this is what we need to do. When he says alert in Spanish, when I'm using these different terminologies, they'll know, okay, what's the difference between a warning and a watch? What do I need to do beforehand, afterhand? You know, all those different types. Also, in meeting Rick, we went ahead and he had let me know about some information about a social media seminar that they were going to do. Not a seminar. Help me out, Rick. I'm lost for words right now. Simulation.
I'm lost too.
Simulation. The tornado simulation drill.
Yeah, the tornado drill. The social media tornado drill.
So I thought, okay, let's translate that in Spanish. Did that, and it was kind of amazing to see the statistics that came back from that, from people sharing, commenting, tweeting, basically just getting that information and sending it everywhere. Likes, comments, shares. It was great. The other thing is, going back to the pamphlet, I teamed up with the Red Cross, and we put information together as to, okay, how do people prepare for the tornadoes? That then in turn turned into the Red Cross saying, hey, we're having events, come and speak. Okay, so I went out to various events with the Red Cross, and we kind of had that partnership going where we in turn were getting that information out to the Hispanic community in their language, and we saw very positive results from that.
And I think in talking to you and talking to the Red Cross, your tactic has been to go to where the people are, not to necessarily have an event and say, hey, come to this location. I mean, you're going to churches, you're going to different groups or different places where people are already gathering. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. And it works out better that way because, hey, they're having a meeting and I'm a special guest, surprise. It works out better because you already have the people there. They're going there for a certain purpose. You add on 30 minutes to whatever it is that they're going to be talking about, and it works.
Michael, I was going to ask you about some of the requests that you've had from the community to come out and speak. You've already answered that. So let's move on to a slightly different topic, which is one that I've been involved in, which is societal impacts. And the effort on the part of the Weather Service to change the terminology that is in some of the warnings. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your experience with getting that message out, but maybe more appropriately, how your viewership is actually responding to the way you're getting that message out.
Terminology in regards to it being in English, Spanish?
Any way you want to answer that. Just that we're I think more cognizant of how the end user is responding to the words that we use, the manner in which we present that information, our own personal appearance and physical makeup. Just how is that message getting across in the response? Are we getting the correct response?
Oh, I think we definitely are. I use the actual Google Translate doesn't do the best of jobs of translating the actual alerts as far as terminology-wise. So I'm always certain that I'm using the correct terminology and the difference between watch and warning. Because if you were to go into Google right now and type in, a tornado watch, well, that's going to actually come up with the terminology for a warning. Or vice versa. If you type in the terminology for a tornado warning, it'll give you what it should be for a watch. And so that can somewhat be confusing, but I use the general term. I use the same terms all the time, so that way the public can then start familiarizing themselves with, okay, this is what this means, this is what this means, and people understand it. So
that's incredibly important when you consider that the general public doesn't understand the difference between a watch and a warning. Even English-speaking folks don't know the difference.
And I think the good thing is okay, for example, a watch is vigilancia in Spanish, and then warning is alerta, which warning, alert, alerta, it has more of an impact when it's translated. That's just the way it happens to be translated. I think it makes it easier. And I think the reason people in English get confused is because they start with the exact same letter. I think that's what throws people off, watch, warning, which is which, But when it's in Spanish, it's either vigilancia or alerta. They're two different terms completely, and I think it gets the message across in Spanish.
Mike, one more question from me. I feel like we made a lot of progress since last May in reaching out and in working with you. I wish the Weather Service could do more or was doing more. Well, what do you think the next step is, specifically here in the Oklahoma City area, Oklahoma as a state, because you cover the whole state basically. What do we do next? What's the next step? What do you think from all your meetings and interactions with people are some areas where we're not hitting the mark or areas where we're coming up short as far as communication, or what's the next thing on your list?
Two things, actually. One of the things that I'm trying to put a proposal together to then send it to management is the radar information that we're receiving here at the station, like a Viper, a Fast Track, something to actually track the storms and put it down to street level. Because the system that we're using now is great for a day-to-day basis, but when it comes into severe weather mode, it becomes rather difficult. Some of the features that in Omni that are not included, like if you were to get a Viper or something that's in WSI, would be like the auto mapping and also the where you would zoom in. Those of y'all who've worked with WSI, when you zoom into a place, this cities will automatically rearrange themselves and labeling and everything. And then I think the other thing would be with the National Weather Service. I'm still trying to figure out the link here. We can talk about this later. Getting those automated messages for warnings and alerts to actually be transmitted on the weather radios, but in Spanish.
Right.
Hey, Mike, this is James in Birmingham. We had loss of life here 3.5 years ago. We had a tornado outbreak in one day in our state. We had 62 tornadoes. The death toll was 252. Some of those that died were Hispanics, and quite frankly, I think we did a very poor job of reaching Hispanics. We do not have a Spanish commercial television station here. We don't have any kind of Spanish television station here, but there's a lot of Spanish radio. So, and I know you mentioned crawls, but I need some practical advice on what to do here to better reach the Hispanic community. I think radio is probably the right solution. I mean, you mentioned crawls. The problem is we've got a crawl at the top of the screen, which is the Weather Service warning text. We've got a call at the bottom of the screen, which are the school closings and all that. You throw a third crawl in there, it's just, before you know it, it's almost enough to make your eyeballs spin. But what's some real world way for us, where there's no Spanish television station, to reach Hispanics? Is it radio? And if so, how do we connect with the radio stations to help them get the word out?
One of the things I would say, as far as the crawl, depending on who your provider is, they offer them in both languages now. So you can have it crawl once in English and then another time in Spanish. You know what the great part is, James?
What would that be?
You don't have to know Spanish. It automatically translates it for you.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so
I can barely speak Alabama.
You don't have to learn a second language, and it'll automatically translate that message for you, depending on who the provider is. But a lot of the weather vendors already out there have them, to where it'll go once in English, and you can add it on to where it'll also crawl in Spanish as well.
Okay,
if you have a...
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, as far as the radio, rather, if you have a radio station, see about partnering with them somehow. And just, I mean, what they did here in the past was they had someone turn the channel to a different station, and were just literally translating whatever it was that they were saying to get that message out there to people.
Yeah, and I think, Brian Peters is here in my market too. Brian, we got a problem with this, and you were the WCM here. And I don't think we've done anything really effectively to reach the Hispanic community.
I think you're right.
And another problem I note, it seems like most of the Hispanic radio stations here are AM stations, and during the day they have nice coverage, but at night they reduce power and you can't hear them in many places. And that's another problem. Many of our tornadoes happen at night. Some happen after midnight, and again, it's just a problem where if they can't pick up an Hispanic station, so maybe we'll look at the dual crawl thing. I never even thought about that, but we got to do something, because we learned after April 27, 2011, we missed reaching a lot of people groups, and Hispanic community was one of them, so we have to do a better job. All right, guys, listen up. I see where we are on the clock here. We got to take a break. We're going to do Professor Peters. We got a whole lot here. We've got Aubrey. By the way, Aubrey, you doing okay? I see you're in the studio there. They got the news going on behind you. Are they done?
No, we're done right now. I got about 15-ish minutes.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, we're going to do Professor Peters. We'll come right out of that with the email segment, and then we'll do everything else. We have Nate's News. We have the astronomy report for the week. Picks of the week, it's a bonanza here, so hang on as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
Here's a bit of weather history, starting with a quiz. What do a Lutheran minister, a prestigious award, and weather observations have to do with one another? Time's up. Well, not as good a buzzer as James Spann has. The answer is John Campanius Holm. John was born in Stockholm, Sweden in 1601, where he attended Uppsala University. There he studied theology, graduating in 1633. The same year, he was ordained. He served as a chaplain to the Swedish delegation to Russia, but upon returning to Sweden in 1635, he assumed the position of schoolmaster. In 1642, John left Stockholm for the New World. He settled in what was known as New Sweden, a Swedish colony along the lower reaches of the Delaware River. John did not have a church for services, but rather visited settlers in their cabins. John also spent a great deal of time in evangelizing the Lenape Indians that lived in the area. In fact, he was able to gain a good understanding of their language and learn how to preach to them. His understanding and study of the language resulted in one of the first attempts by a European native to create a written record on Native American language. But John also had an avid interest in the weather. He is the first person known to have made systematic observations of weather conditions near the present-day site of Wilmington, Delaware. His observations, kept in a diary, were done without the help of any instrumentation in 1644 and 1645. His son later had these published. So, considered by most to be the first weatherman in the American colonies, NOAA's National Weather Service created the John Campanius Home Award that is granted annually to honor accomplishments by people in the Cooperative Weather Observer Program. No more than 25 of these are granted each year, and each one of the certificates is signed by the NOAA administrator. An early contributor in the field of weather, whose interest and legacy live on.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, I'm Tony Rice with your astronomy outlook for the week of September 8th. Each night after sunset, Mars continues its southerly swing away from Saturn and towards the orange giant star Antares in the southwestern sky. Take a look over several nights and you'll notice the movement. Later in the evening, look for the bright star Vega at zenith or directly overhead. Tonight the moon is at perigee, the closest point in its orbit to Earth. The moon also reaches full tonight, which means, that's right, supermoon, the last of the year. The September moon is usually known by other names though. Corn or harvest moon. The Chinese call it the chrysanthemum moon. The Cherokee call it nut, but my favorite is the Dakota Sioux. They call it the moon when the calves grow hair. Yesterday, asteroid 2014 RC passed the Earth about 25,000 miles away, or about a tenth of the distance to the moon. This asteroid is about the size of a house, a similar size to the Chelyabinsk meteorite that entered the atmosphere in February 2013 over central Russia. 2014 RC was discovered only a week ago and came closest to Earth on 2:18 p.m. Eastern above New Zealand. Close passes happen like this a lot more often than you might realize. NASA monitors all known near-Earth objects, or comets and asteroids that come within 1.3 astronomical units, or about 121 million miles. Just this week, there's a dozen NEOs that will pass, 6 on Monday alone, and the closest will be passing a comfortable 500 million miles from Earth. The International Space Station will be visible again in pre-dawn skies over North America again this week. Best viewing will be in southeastern states on Wednesday, about 45 minutes before sunrise, and again on Saturday and Sunday. Check spotthestation.nasa.gov for exact times for your location. That's your Astronomy Outlook. I'm NASA Ambassador Tony Rice. You can follow me on Twitter at RTPHokey for more spacey stuff like this.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
All right. Good evening, WeatherBrains. My mic is open. All right, let's get this thing rolling. Most recent email came in from Cody. Cody is from Canada and has a question for Mr. Span. If you could pick the 5 most memorable tornado events that you've either covered on the air or have been a part of in any way in the past, what would they be and any chance why? James, why don't you just give us maybe 1 or 2? Obviously, April 2011, I'm sure is a big one.
As old as I am, I've worked a bunch of them. I've worked, of course, the only guy, Brian, has worked more than me. I would say in my professional career, I've been on television since 1978, which is really creepy. That's a long time. But clearly the most significant event was what happened 3.5 years ago. This was April 27, 2011. We had an analog event to that in 1974, but I was a senior in high school back then. So I was an amateur radio guy doing my thing. But in terms of my professional career, April 27, 2011 had to be probably the top. The second, I would say, was an event we had here April 8th, 1998. We had an EF5 in my market, and that killed 34 people. And this was a time where aggressive long-form television coverage was new in this market. And a lot of the stations were kind of timid, and I was not allowed to do this where I worked prior to here. And I think it kind of brought us to a new level of television weather coverage, similar to what they're doing in Oklahoma City and even Huntsville. So that was kind of a breakthrough type event where it meant a lot. And again, I think considering the technology we had at the time, it worked out pretty well. And we'll do the other three later, but those are my two big ones, I'd say.
Well, thank you, James. Also had another email from Daniel Lucas, which I also made my pick of the week. I saw this picture on Twitter, and then he sent in the link from the Capital Weather Gang, the National Weather Service Forecast Office in the D.C.-Baltimore area, which is my office. This year has issued 18 tornado warnings, and amazingly has issued more warnings than parts of Texas and Oklahoma. More so than Texas, specifically in Tornado Alley, which is also rather interesting. We had 2 tornado warnings specifically in my DMA, and we have not had a warning since, I believe it was May in 2011, right after the outbreak. So it had been a couple years for our area. And if you read the article, it talks about some of the actual tornadoes verifying not quite so high as they are in Texas and Oklahoma, but also you don't get the signature in this area, especially within the mountainous area that I'm in, like you do out in parts of the Great Plains. So, or out in parts of the central part of the country. So that's also an interesting read. And I think, unless I missed something, that is about it. So if you have an email you would like to send us, maybe a guest suggestion, maybe a show topic suggestion, something you have a question about, or if you just like to tell us what you like about the show or even what you don't like about the show, you can send us an email at weatherbrains.com. You can also find us on Twitter. Just search for WeatherBrains. You can find us on Facebook. Just search for, you guessed it, WeatherBrains. And we also have a webpage. Find WeatherBrains, and you can also check out our new logo, courtesy a la Kevin, and you can check out that logo and see what that's all about. And also, don't forget your t-shirt, your WeatherBrains t-shirt at Teespring. Only 7 days left, and if you like all of us individually, well, you can follow us individually as well. Different information from all of our different markets.
Know what that music means? Ladies and gentlemen, time now for Nate's News with none other than Nate.
Well, that's good. Phew.
I hope so.
Nate's News with Bill. So following along on the email from the Capital Weather Gang, the Weather Channel and Dr. Greg Forbes ran the numbers. August was the lowest August tornado count since the 1960s, according to Weather Channel severe weather expert Greg Forbes. Only 27 in the month of August. That is a ridiculously and blessedly low number. Really good. But on the heels of that, you do have a very interesting location for some of those tornadoes, or at least the warnings. The Sterling, Virginia office has issued more than a number of offices in Oklahoma City or in Oklahoma and Texas. And Rick, how many nadir warnings have y'all pulled the trigger on this season? And you're muted, so it's a good thing no nadirs tonight.
He's still muted.
There we go.
Sorry.
Try again. So how many nadir warnings have y'all issued this year?
The Norman office has only issued 7 this year, I think, and I think.
And all 7 verified perfectly.
Do what?
And all 7 verified perfectly, I assume. Yes.
I'm sorry, you're still breaking up. We issued 7 very good tornado warnings. Whether a tornado happened or not, that's not our fault. But anyway,
all right.
Very low number. I think the average long term is 50 or something by this. I don't know, but it's we're knocking on wood every time we talk about it, though.
There you go. Well, we'll do a little knocking on the wood here. Of course, the big weather story today has been the flooding. What's left of Hurricane Norbert. I love that. Somebody on Twitter mentioned, I'm drawing a blank as to who, but they said, I think it may have been Andrew Friedman, who said that you just can't take a storm named Norbert very seriously. I'm expecting I'm expecting the next one to be. This one's going to get retired, and they're going to replace it with Nermal, that gray kitten from the Garfield cartoon, and I'll be able to take that one even less seriously. But big flooding, they really do need to take the moisture seriously with that. Some moisture in association with Norbert really causing some big problems for folks in the Southwest. But it's one of those, they need the rain, because they're in the throes of a serious drought. As a matter of fact, last week, 100% of the state of California was in some kind of drought, and something like 97% was an exceptional or extreme, which is that's ridiculous what they're having to deal with out there. Meanwhile, we have snow in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and I'm waiting for our friends at the Long John Index in Canada to start issuing advisories. It's not about that time, but it's about that time. One last thing, and this isn't really weather related, but I thought it was blame cool. So we had the earthquake in California a few weeks ago. The Los Angeles Times ran a story about how an early warning system gave some folks in the Bay Area an almost 10-second heads up before it started shaking. And I'm looking at that going, wow, that's cool, and 10 seconds really isn't a whole lot of time. But I kept reading the article because it filled it in, and there's a lot of things that you can do in 10 seconds that you don't think about, especially with earthquakes. With tornadoes, you're going to have a high-risk day. You leave the kids at home. You close things up. You don't schedule, let's say, elective surgeries. But if you live in earthquake country, that 10 seconds is enough for your neurosurgeon to pull the scalpel out of your head. That's a valuable thing. That'd be worth taking a look at. So anyway, they think that it could give even more time, but the 10-second warning for an earthquake, that's science fiction stuff that's coming to reality. A couple things coming up to reality. Of course, National Weather Association annual meeting coming up in the middle of October. If you want to register, you can. Early bird rates still apply, and you do want to get your hotel booked, though, because the conference hotel is all but full. Although you can book outside of the NWA block in that hotel. Give them a call. They'll work that out for you. And then AMS in Phoenix in January. And finally, this is September the 8th. Tomorrow is September 9th. And Apple is a long-awaited announcement of what we assume will be the iPhone 6, quite possibly the iWatch. And, of course, the question is whether or not Apple is going to include any sort of weather instrumentation in either or both of those, either a barometer or a temperature sensor or something like that. So we'll see. We'll have Apple iPhone Geek Brains next week. So, and that's all I have. If you have any news elements you'd like to have me include in a future report, you can send them to us, email at weatherbrains.com, or you can tweet me. I am NSJ, just 3 letters. That's it, on the Twitter.
Kevin, what do you have up on your screen here? What is this?
Well, that's James Spann with hair. Oh wait, he never had hair. No.
Based on
this is great.
Based on Aubrey's recommendation, I went to the Facebook page, which I had not done in some time, and there was this picture there.
What?
Yeah, it's on the Facebook page. I don't know who those 3 young guys are. I think, and I don't think that's all the same time frame, though. I think that one of you is older than the one of me. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes. For those that are listening, Kevin has a picture of the 3 of us, and by the 3 of us, I'm talking Kevin, me, and Dan Satterfield, the Doppler 6 team. And this was early 90s, so this goes back at least 20 years. I had the patch thing working up there, man. I had that patch thing coming right out of the top of my head.
James, that never worked. Let's just be honest here. It's like a comb over. Just don't do it. Just shake it all off.
Yeah, no, that thing had to go, but at the time I tried the patch. Dan was looking a lot like Alfalfa, the Little Rascals in that shot. He was looking good. And Kevin was wearing the hat.
The hat. That hat will never go away, will it?
As a matter of fact, it really won't go away because
yes,
it's right here. It's right here in the room.
You look like Mr.
So somebody said it looked like Freddy Krueger or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very.
What exactly have that hat was not that bad looking when I gave it to you.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at Kevin when he's wearing it there. And again, for those listening, it's kind of well shaped and everything. Here we are, 20-something years later, and it's just in bad shape. I mean, it needs to be remolded
I was
here.
just saying, what have we been doing to that poor thing?
Well, the problem is it's been moved around a lot. We need to get this in a museum where it's.
What do you mean moved? You're in the same town.
Well, no, I'm just saying, it's been moved from the studio back into my little room to the house and back here, and everybody wants to come see it. Everybody that comes by the station wants to see it. They want to put it on, get a picture made with it. So,
no.
It's still in use. All of our WeatherBrains.
It's on my bucket list to wear that hat.
Now, I'm telling you, this is a big deal, and almost everybody that listens to the show that come by to see me, and if anybody wants to come by and visit the station, you're driving through Birmingham, you're welcome to come by. They want to see the hat, and they want to wear it, and they want to get a picture made with that thing on their head. So
I think you're making that up.
No, I'm being quite serious. And,
that's funny.
And by the way, looking at the panel, guys, here, I'm sorry, but I cannot help myself, but I'm going to play this, and let's see if anybody recognizes this song. Listen very carefully. We're going to go back in time to 1973. 1973! Way back when I was in high school, playing rock and roll music on the radio. Oh, I'm looking at two of our guys. I'm looking at two of our guys on this show, and I couldn't help myself. But I got to play. I got to play being in the right place in the wrong time. Ladies and gentlemen, for our two Dr. Johns, this is Dr. John.
One of the producers where I work, where I fill in, calls me Dr. John, not because I'm Dr. John, but because of Dr. John.
Yeah, so, boy, that was a long intro. I forgot how long that intro was. So Dr. John and Dr. John, have y'all heard that song before?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm trying to think who else on the show maybe you've heard. Kevin, you've heard that, right? You worked on the oldies station.
Sure.
All right, we got to do. And by the way, that Skydiver sent me a note here. Let me see if I can pull this up here.
There's no
fog bank.
No fog bank.
Yeah, he sent us a note indicating maybe Aubrey, if you read this, I'm sorry. He said no fog bank.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have time to put together a fog bank. He'll be ready next week. He's been on vacation, and he has not had a chance to catch up on the missed episodes. So if James doesn't talk too mean about me. No, I mean, we do pay Skydiver. We do pay Skydiver $10,000 per fog bank episode that he produces for us, and I'm just saying, for that kind of money, he ought to be cranking these things out. But,
for that kind of money, I'm in the wrong line of work.
Amen. So this is where we do Picks of the Week. We go around the horn and everybody shares something weather-related. This can be a website. This can be weather hardware, instruments, anything remotely related to weather, even maybe not even related to weather. So for our guest, Mike and Dr. John, I warn you, we're going to come around and ask you guys. But let's start with Aubrey because she's got the 11 o'clock news coming up here shortly. What's your pick of the week?
My pick is the article from the Capital Weather Gang about the excessive number of tornado warnings in Virginia, Maryland, in our area. Tornadoes.
Cool. So I see your guy back there. What's he doing? Checking the tweeter on his phone back there, texting his girlfriend.
Probably a promo tweet. He's saying, "Hey, watch Aubrey and me tonight at 11."
Can this guy hear us back there?
Yes, Shannon. Well, no, he can't hear you. He can hear me.
Oh, okay.
I have earbuds in.
Tell him to wave at us or something. Give it, do something
wave.
back there.
Channing wave.
That was a week. Come on, man, get that arm going. I mean, work that thing. I mean, boy, the news anchors will not play along with anything, All right, and again, when you got to take off, Aubrey, you go. I'm kind of in the same boat you're in. Hello. Boy, this is great. Mike's starting to roam here. He's like moving. I'm going to mute him while he's moving. Let's go to Brian Peters. Brian, what's your pick of the week? Let's see if you're siloning now.
Hope not. Am I siloning?
It's clean.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Well, actually, I should let Dr. John Scala go first because it was his pick that actually got my pick.
Oh, okay.
So my pick is a very interesting site on the celebrating 200 years of by NOAA of the Galveston meteorologist Isaac Klein, and of course I've read his book Isaac Storm, and that's a fascinating book, but very interesting. But it was Dr. John Scala's pick that got my pick. So Dr. John Scala, go next.
And today is September the 8th. So 114 years ago was the Great Galveston Hurricane. So the same linkage that Professor Peters was alluding to is what my pick was for today.
Okay, and again, I'm going to have to let Kevin finish out here because I've got to go and Aubrey's got to go because of television. My pick very quickly, it's mediograms. I love a good mediagram. I can sit there and stare at these things all day.
Who doesn't? I mean, really.
From NOAA's Meteorological Development Lab. A lot of people probably have not seen this, and again, all of these links are going to be up on the website, weatherbrains.com. So, Kev, from this hat to your hat, go. You got the show.
I know, and look at the comparison there. I hate to play to the video, but look at that hat that James has on versus the
Looks awesome.
I'm gonna get this one reshaped, and we're gonna work on it.
All right.
Bye.
All right. See ya. All right. We'll continue down the line now. Our guest Michael, did they give you a heads up about a pick of the week? Do you have one?
No, I don't.
Do you have anything that you want to plug? Weather-wise, a website that you use a lot?
National Weather Service.
Well, how about something that is I don't know, Hispanic friendly as far as the text and that you use regularly that people may not know about?
I do actually. There's a website, and I can email it to him, that they have out there, and it's a climate. It's through the UN. I can't think of the website right now.
Okay.
But basically, what it is climate data, and it's all of these recommendations, and it's all in Spanish, which is good because it helps people that obviously only speak Spanish. Kind of tips, how to conserve water, things like that, and I can send that to you.
Well, we'd love to see that. Yeah, email it to Bill, and we'll put it up on the website.
All right, will do. Thank you again, guys.
Thanks,
I am
Mike.
on here in 4 minutes.
Thanks for joining us. Hey, John, I remember that question that I'd forgotten earlier when my brain seized up. But how long, before you do a pick, if you have one, but how long are we before we would see something operational with regard to these?
Good question. We're currently actually trying to get a program together on a crowdsourcing site known as Kickstarter.
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot less money than we get from the government, but it's a start to get us a prototype system. And the Twitter account is @GlobalSense2015, and that points everyone to the website, which talks a little about what we're trying to do. And it has the preview page for the Kickstarter. So we're hoping to launch that. What we're really looking to do, the name of the Kickstarter project is Global Sense, bringing Hollywood tornado sensors to life. So the idea that we're going to recreate that scene in the end of the Twister movie where we actually deploy them. We're not going to drive a Ford 150 into a tornado, but we're hoping to use either the TIV or Reed Timmer's vehicle or something like that to get really close and launch a pod of these things directly into maybe an F2 or an F3 or something like that.
Wow.
So with any luck, we'll have that maybe later in the spring next year or perhaps the year after.
Cool. Oh, so the Kickstarter wouldn't start until then.
Right. The Kickstarter will probably pick up sometime at the end of this year or beginning of 2015, and we've got to run the campaign 30 days. Hopefully we'll get it backed by enough people, and then we'll need probably 6 to 12 months to actually put the full system together. So we'll do some preliminary testing in the spring next year, but the full tornado deployment will probably not happen until the following year.
And how much money are you looking for in the Kickstarter?
Kickstarter, we're probably looking about $100,000, which is really not enough to do what we need, but it's enough to get us started, and hopefully we'll get some additional interest from some other backers and maybe some investors and so forth to go forward with it.
Fascinating. Well, you can't use that as your pick of the week then. Do you have one?
Yes, actually there was a story I tweeted out today from Reuters talking about coastal flooding and sea level rise. And I think the most interesting part of it was the legacy of inaction, and a lot of the data that's shown there should get people pretty excited, especially if they live in the coastal region. So
cool. And what's your Twitter handle?
Yeah, it's @GlobalSense. That's all one word. 2015.
Very good. John, thanks for being with us today.
Well, thank you and all the brains for having me on the show. I really enjoyed it.
No, we appreciate it. Nate, did you do a pick yet?
I did. I have a pick. Since flooding has been top of mind, not only here in Raleigh, but in Arizona and in Virginia and a couple other places. And I know this has been a pick before, but it's a really great site. The Weather Service office in, I believe it's Rapid City, South Dakota, has put together a climatological graph for all of the upper air sites across the country, showing the different ranges for precipitable water values. Precipitable water being the, if you look through its column, how much of that water could you rain out if you had a really efficient thunderstorm or something like that, and giving it, if you have really high precipitable water values, or PWAT, that can give you an idea that you may be in line for some flooding. So I've sent that link along, and we'll have that posted on weatherbrains.com. But it's a great idea to give you a sense at any point during the year of what your precipitable water value is and whether it's really high, really low, that kind of thing.
Excellent. I'm also going to, based on tonight, your comments tonight, I'm going to make it my mission that you will, in fact, wear at least one of these hats at some point in time in the future. So.
Oh, well, let's do both.
Yeah.
Go big or go home, Kevin Stelly. Come
on. Rick, you have a pick, sir?
Yeah, I do. I kind of went back and forth. There was a couple of good options this week, but this one kind of popped into my Twitter feed late this afternoon. And if you've ever flown in a plane and wondered about, how does the weather forecasting part of that whole business work? Well, there's an interesting article that showed up yesterday in the technology section of the New York Times, and we'll have the link up to that. Airlines take the bump out of turbulence, and it's a really good description of what goes on at the National Weather Service's Aviation Weather Center, and talks about some of the airlines' private meteorologists that they use too. So it's just an interesting article to talk about some of the advances and kind of how that all works out to keep you safe and keep your drink from spilling all over you while you're flying.
And we'll have, this leads me into a nice tease for a future upcoming show. We have Becky Miller, formerly a broadcast meteorologist in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, now a meteorologist with Southwest Airlines. That might be my next dream job. I don't know. But she's agreed to be on the show. We're working out a date that works for everybody. Her schedule is all over the place since she just started over there. But
that's great. I had lunch with her and a bunch of TV weather folks here in Dallas-Fort Worth a couple months ago. That's fantastic. Before she'd gotten that job. That is, by the way, I think she must have been the one that tweeted it out. Is the coolest looking weather center.
Yes. I mean, I need to send my set design people down to Southwest operations floor, because that's what our new weather center needs to look like. That's pretty slick.
These flowy wave wing and blue. I was going to say, and Rick maybe has some insight into this too, but those weather jobs at the airlines have got to be a pressure cooker. Do you have any experience with that, Rick?
I would imagine so. I mean, we have frequent visits from the Southwest folks. They come up and bring interns during the summer to visit our office and our building, and it's certainly high pressure. I mean, it's certainly, you've got instant decisions that are being made, and there's none of this 30% chance of this or that. I mean, it's I got to know exactly what the ceiling is and what the visibility is. So I'd imagine it'd be pretty high pressure.
Yeah. I would agree. All right, well, very good. My pick of the week is something very simple, but it's something I go to a lot, and you really have to dig down to get it. The actual link will be to the Fort Worth Upper Air site, but it's actually at the Unisys website for weather, and it's just chock full of information from the sounding each day, the balloon launches. You can get level and pressure and heights and temperatures from the very lowest level all the way up to the very highest level in great detail, and then they put a lot of the indexes in there. There's I'm looking through. There's freezing level, wet bulb, precipitable water, like Nate was talking about. We got theta E and lapse rates, and cap strength, and lifted index, and all these things. And it just goes on and on and on, chock full of data. So that is deep within the upper air soundings part of the Unisys weather website. Anybody else have any final comments? Anything you want to plug before we start to wrap it up?
I got nothing.
You got nothing.
I had nothing at the beginning of the show. That hasn't changed.
Oh, so now James is gone. We can't play the T-shirt promo again, but I'll plug it. It's one more week, teespring.com/weatherbrains, $20 for a T-shirt and $30 for a hoodie. So I guess we're about done. We got all of our contact information on the website at weatherbrains.com. We usually do this program at 8:30 p.m. Central Time on Monday nights, and it's live at live.bigbrainsmedia.com. And we thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look for you next week. I'm not James Spann. Have a great week, and God bless.
Good to see you, John.
Good night, John.
Good night.
John, thanks for
So many Johns, so little time. Thanks for being here, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool stuff. All right,
Take care.
guys.
Good night.
Take care.
Peace.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.
Yes. Yes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are still live. Live. And people are watching. See, if you want my true feelings, my heart on my sleeve, this is where you find it. If by chance the stream is still up, and oh, this is funny. Yeah, this is great. So they run some kicker back here. You know, the kicker is the little in story in the newscast. It was just horrible. It was horrible. It wasn't funny. It offended people. Goodness gracious! All these people are sending me notes. Yes. So here's one notice: is so how big is the hole in your lip from biting it during the last story? I almost did say something, but you know, I bit my lip. Oh boy. All right, so let's get back on the topic here. Let me put the hat back. Yeah, this is Kevin's hat from the blizzard of '93. This should be enshrined in a museum somewhere. It's obviously needing some help. I have not abused it, according to Kevin. His allegation, I have abused this thing. You know, the fact that it's, probably 25 years old, it's still in pretty good shape. But let me stick it back up here. There's a special place for that up here in the top of this big bookcase thing in my office. All right, now that was a good show tonight. You know, the Hispanic thing is interesting to me, in that we have struggled with that, and you know, and I don't know what the legal ramifications are. You know, there's so many things that we are mandated to do with these crawls now. A lot of it's out of our hands, and I don't know, but I will think about the idea of doing a crawl in English and a crawl in Spanish, and really, you know, that stuff is crawling up there, I think, because of a legal obligation. We're explaining the weather, but we crawl the text of the Weather Service warnings up there in the top, and you know, we'll see. But and I do worry about Hispanic families, because a lot of them do use Hispanic radio, but at night, so many of the AM stations power down, and you can't hear them very far, and it's just a problem. But anyway, it's a very good topic, and it was great having Dr. John and Mike on the show with us. What else here? I'm still working here. No, we are owned by Sinclair, largest group television owner in the country now, and I have really not heard from them. They came by once, and who knows, but they're keeping local management, and that's good, and they told us they expect us to honor our contracts and vice versa, so I guess I'll be here for 3 or 4 more years, which is about the length of that. And what else? I miss the Albritons, our former owners. Interesting, Fred Ryan, who was the president, is now the editor of the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos hired him. You know, Amazon bought the Washington Post. I thought that was interesting. But no, I will miss Robert Albritton and Mr. Ryan and all those folks. It was a marvelous, marvelous 18-year run. I never thought in this business I would work for somebody for 18 years. So it was great. And again, you know, I think Sinclair is just going to let us keep doing our thing down here. I don't see a lot of change, but we'll see. We have a news director position open, and we'll see how that goes. But I got to go. It's late. Thank you all for staying up with me. Any other radically crazy things I can say here? Any secrets I can divulge? I don't think so. And, you know, yeah, I'm not going to do any more 7 o'clock speeches on Monday night. I mean, tonight I literally walked in this room at 10 minutes before showtime, and understand, from a cold boot on a computer, I got to bring up a whole lot of things to make this thing work. You know, I've got to put the right elements into soundboard. I've got to bring up Audio Hijack Pro, and that's the program that really is the magic that makes all this work to record the audio segments, because we have to record my track and the Hangout track, and I've got to be able to push the soundboard audio down the line so people can hear it on the Hangout. And we do all that with Audio Hijack Pro. There's no mixer here. I mean, there was nothing but a laptop, a MacBook Pro. And so I had to bring all that up, and you know, typically I get the pre-show going about 15 minutes before showtime. We got the pre-show going like 1 minute before showtime tonight. So I will do no more Monday night speeches for me, or if I do, they better be really, really, really short. I don't know. I guess that's it. Apple's got the big announcement tomorrow. I didn't get an invitation. Of course, I couldn't go if I did. I guess we'll see an iPhone 6, watch, maybe something surprise. I don't know. I have great fear that this has been hyped up so much it will be a letdown. But they'll release iOS 8 into the world, and I've been using that since June, really. This is September. This is iOS 8, and this last version is very, very stable. I mean, if there's a bug here, I don't know what it is, so it's clearly ready to go. My main interest is when will they release the desktop operating system, which will be called Yosemite for OS 10, and because it is pretty tightly integrated with this, and it would be nice kind of getting everything together. I've got Yosemite running on a computer back in the weather office, but I obviously am not going to put it on this production machine, because we all know what happens when you upgrade on a production machine too early. Things don't work, and especially when you're using Soundflower and Audio Hijack Pro and all this stuff. I mean, it is very complicated. So I gotta go. Thank you all for sticking around. We'll see you next week. Bye.